Like many parts of the country, the Colne Valley has a rich tradition of telling folk stories and legends, often with villagers poking fun at the foolishness of their neighbours. Here, these legends have led to locals being given nicknames. There's the Marsden Cuckoos, Slaithwaite Lead Boilers, the Kirklees, and the Slaithwaite Moonrakers. It's the moonraking legend that I will be talking about today. The moonraking legend, as it is most commonly told, goes something like this. In the early years of the 19th century, Slaithwaite was a busy place. The canal docks in the centre of the village were alive with activity as boatmen loaded and unloaded goods such as coal, stone and grain onto and off of the narrowboats. But as well as this thriving daytime trade, the canal also supported a more illicit industry. The canal was used as a place to hide smuggled contraband. On one clear night in 1800 and something, with a bright moon above them, a band of smugglers set out with rakes and hooks to retrieve their hidden loot. However, just as they were raking out the first barrel, they were happened upon by a group of excisemen, who asked them what they were doing. A quick-thinking member of the party pointed at the moon reflected on the surface of the water. He told the excisemen that the moon had fallen into the canal, and that they were trying to rake it out to put back into the sky. The excisemen, taking them to be drunken fools, left the smugglers to keep trying. As soon as the excisemen were out of sight, of course, our smugglers retrieved their goods, and then had a very jolly night, celebrating their very close escape. The version of the moonraking legend, in which quick-thinking Slaithwaite smugglers outwit the law, is the one most commonly told. But it isn't the only version. In his series of pamphlets, The Legends and Traditions of Huddersfield and its District, Philip Ayer lists several variations on the moonraking story. Some of them do not reflect so favourably on the intelligence of the locals in question. He tells a story like this. It appears that a party of young country fellows once gazed into the River Colne, or the canal, and beheld the reflection of the moon on the water. They imagined a corpse with an upturned face was floating on the river. Some of their number rushed to the nearest farmhouse to fetch rakes, and on their return to the riverbank, proceeded to rake out the reflection of the moon. A variation relates to the young fellows, who had imbibed rather freely, fancied that a huge cheese was floating in the river, and that they endeavoured to bring it to the bank by means of rakes. Or, a group of lads noticed the reflection of the moon was gradually moving nearer to the bridge over the Colne. One of them developed a brainwave. When it gets under the bridge, we'll get it out. They then leaned over the parapet, each fellow catching hold of the ankles of the next in the form of a chain. They were at the point of achieving their desire when the one on the bridge called out, "Just a minute till I spit on me hands." The result was the whole party tumbled into the river and got a good drenching. We know that some version of the moonraking story has been told in Slaithwaite for at least 140 years. An article in the Huddersfield Chronicle in 1880 reported on a bazaar held by the Conservative Club. The event had stalls, refreshments, and in one room, sensational works of art, such as Vesuvius before and after the eruption. 2 matchsticks, one that had been lit and one that had not. Amongst these artworks was a model of Slaithwaite Half Moon, complete with a rake and a bit of cheese. But our story goes back even further than that. On the opening pages of the Annals of the Church in Slaithwaite, published in 1864, Charles Augustus Hulbert tells us another story of Slaithwaite and the moon. He said, "The ancient and populous chapelry of Slaithwaite, or Slaithwaite, situated chiefly within the extensive parish of Huddersfield, but lying on either side of a romantic valley, from 4 to 6 miles east of that town, has long been remarkable for its succession of pious ministers, and, of late years, for its mineral baths. The Yorkshire reader will not fail to add, with a smile, for its famous half-moon. The version of the tradition deemed most authentic represents a boy from Slaithwaite spending the day at York, in admiration of the many things in that metropolitan city of the north, so different from what he had seen at home. But when the night came, he exclaimed, 'Well, if there is not our old Slaithwaite half-moon.'" The earliest reference to the famous Slaithwaite moon that appears in newspapers can be found in a report in the Huddersfield Chronicle from 1851, about a meeting of the Spade Husbandry and Stool Feeding Association at Slaithwaite National School. While discussing the school allotment and the interest it had generated as far as Ireland and Scotland, it was suggested, to applause and laughter, that there was no reason why the famous Slaithwaite moon should not illuminate the three kingdoms. No further explanation was given as to the significance of the half-moon story in the article, which might suggest its meaning was already widely known. The famous Slaithwaite half-moon was deemed significant enough that it was taken as the emblem of the Slaithwaite Gaslight Company, formed in 1855. The half-moon still appears on the emblems and logos of some old Slaithwaite institutions up to this day, including Neild's School and the Slaithwaite Saracens Rugby Club. Looking back now to the 1500s, these moon-like illustrations can be found decorating the manorial court rolls for Slaithwaite Cumlingers. Court rolls were a written record of an annual meeting of the local lord and his tenants, where local disputes were resolved, and minor offences, such as chopping down the lord's trees or failing to properly maintain your house, were dealt with. At the time, Slaithwaite and Lingards were part of the Kay family estate. These figures form the first letter of the title at the beginning of the documents. Perhaps these illustrations are a reference to an early form of the Slaithwaite half-moon story, or perhaps they helped inspire the legend. It's also possible that they are simply decorative flourishes and entirely coincidental. We may never know. Similar moonlight figures also appear on the title of the court rolls for the Manor of Woodsome, which was also part of the Kay family estate. The surviving court rolls, which are written in Latin, are now held by the West Yorkshire Archive Service along with modern English translations. In 1985, a new chapter in our moonraking story began with the first ever Slaithwaite Moonraking Festival. Sloughaters spend the week of the February half-term making intricate candlelit lanterns out of willow and tissue paper. Each festival has a different theme, from the deep sea to outer space and many things in between, to inspire the lantern designs. On the final night of the festival, thousands of people with hundreds of lanterns process around the village, led by a large lantern of the moon, which is raked out of the canal and returned to the sky. To see Slaithwaite streets lit up with such creative and extravagant lanterns, with bands playing and everyone so full of joy, is a wonderful experience. All in celebration of a legend that has been part of our history for generations and possibly many hundreds of years. I wonder how the legend of the famous Slaithwaite moon might be celebrated in another 500 years. In 2021, like many other festivals and events across the world, the Slaithwaite Moonraking Festival was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the locals of Slaithwaite were undeterred and instead organised the Moonshine Festival, with Sloughaters decorating their windows with these beautiful tissue and silhouette displays. The Moonshine Festival returned again in 2022, this time with the theme of water. The Moonraking Festival itself will return in 2023. This video was produced by the Kirklees Local Studies Library in collaboration with the Slaithwaite Moonraking Festival, with special thanks to West Yorkshire Archive Service and Kirklees Museums and Galleries. We'd love to hear your memories of the moonraking legend and the festival that it inspired. You can share them in the comments below. And why not pay us a visit? You can find us on the first floor of the library in Huddersfield. You never know what you might learn about local people, places, history and mythology.